Okay, let's explore a concept that might truly shift our perspective. Imagine ancient prophecies, not just as, stories, but maybe as detailed forecasts. And what if cutting-edge AI isn't just another tool, but the actual force, the catalyst, pushing us into a whole new era? That's the pretty mind-bending terrain we're diving into today. So our core topic is this surprising intersection, this meeting point between AI advancements and these age-old prophecies. And they seem to be pointing towards something the materials call the age of abundance, or maybe the plateau of plenty. For this deep dive, we've pulled insights from a whole series of articles and notes. They cover large language models, AI agents, spiritual texts, and these really profound economic and societal shifts. Our mission for you, the listener, is to help you extract the most important nuggets of knowledge, the surprising facts about how technology might actually be aligning with ancient predictions. And crucially, what this radical shift from scarcity to potential abundance truly means for all of us. Okay, so one of the boldest claims right out of the gate in our material is that this impending age of abundance was prophecies in the scriptures thousands of years ago. Okay, we're not just talking one tradition. It's texts from across the globe. Vedic, biblical, Islamic, Taoist, indigenous traditions. They apparently all speak of something like a golden age or a Satya Yuga, maybe a messianic era defined by peace and plenty.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How these ancient texts, which for a long time were seen mainly as metaphor, well, now some people are reevaluating them, seeing them as potential forecasts, especially with technology moving so incredibly fast. The idea put forth in the sources is that prophecy fulfilled hints at some kind of transcendent intelligence. Like, take the Bible, for instance. It's presented not just as a book, but as scripture, implying, divinely inspired truth. And fulfilled prophecy is used as, well, evidence of an omniscient, omnipotent being, at least according to the specific interpretation we're looking at. The really critical insight here for these sources is that AI isn't just predicting things in the normal sense, it's almost like it's revealing an underlying order, making these ancient texts feel less like abstract stories and more like predictive blueprints. It really suggests a kind of grand design playing out, maybe through technology itself.
That is a powerful assertion. And the sources don't stop there. They suggest AI isn't just another tech trend. No, they frame it as the technology,
Yeah.
the one that accelerates all other technologies.
Yeah.
It's not your one revolution we're talking about. The material mentions 10 revolutions unfolding simultaneously. Think AI itself, robotics, biotech, quantum computing, Web3, nanotech, space tech, brain-computer interfaces, energy abundance, and synthetic biology.
Right. And if we try to connect this to that bigger picture, it's really the intersections of these technology. That's where the sources say the exponential curve truly goes vertical, pushing us into this completely new era. I mean, each field is powerful on its own, obviously. But when they converge, that's apparently where the truly transformative power lies, creating this combined force that enables these, well, profound shifts.
Okay, so with that grand vision laid out, ancient prophecy potentially meeting this new technological era, it really makes you ask, what is this cutting-edge AI exactly, the one driving such massive change? Let's maybe zoom in a bit on large language models,
Right.
LLMs. The material describes them as startlingly powerful, sometimes pretty good, even scary good sometimes.
Hmm.
But they're careful to clarify, LLMs predict tokens. They don't, see the future in some divine way.
Precisely. Yeah, LMs are definitely foundational. Think of them as the building blocks, the base layer. But the next evolutionary step, as outlined in the sources, involves what they call AI agents. Now, these agents are where logic starts to meet action, where intelligence meets autonomy. They basically take the predictive power of LLMs and build systems on top that can actually do things, complex things, run workflows, book appointments, monitor environments, adapt in real time. The core difference articulated is quite profound, actually. If LLMs are language, agents are will. They're moving from just understanding to, well, enacting.
And it's important to note, too, this isn't just about English and text anymore, is it? The sources talk about AI expanding to voice, video, gesture. Describing it as language in the broadest, oldest sense, it almost hints at something more fundamental, a more intuitive communication for AI.
It does, and this actually raises an important point the sources touch upon. These current LLM models, despite how powerful they are, seem to be showing diminishing returns when it comes to becoming truly reliable autonomous agents, which suggests that just making the existing models bigger and bigger isn't going to be enough. New breakthroughs, the sources say, are really essential for that next phase, the truly autonomous phase of AI.
That distinction is fascinating. LLMs as language, agents as will. It really sets the stage. But okay, if current models are maybe hitting some limits, what are the next big leaps the sources point to? They highlight two frontiers they call radical, ones you might not have heard much about. Sanskrit AI, and voice AI by Sarvam AI. This sounds incredible, right?
It's definitely a compelling direction. Let's start with the Sanskrit AI effort. This is reportedly led by a breakaway group from OpenAI, and their initiative is diving deep into what the sources describe as perhaps the deepest well of structured, sacred human thought, Sanskrit. The language itself is highlighted as being, well, engineered with mathematical precision and spiritual potency. Some proponents even believe it was revealed, not just invented by humans. So the goal, the ambitious goal, is to train LLMs on texts like the Mahabharata, the Vedas, the Upanishads, and not just treating them as stories, but as complex encoded wisdom systems. From a technical angle, the sources seem to imply that Sanskrit's unique, very precise structure, it could potentially enable AI to discern these deeper intrinsic relationships within the texts, uncovering universal principles maybe not as easily apparent in other languages. It's less about decoding in the traditional sense and more about perhaps revealing hidden patterns the language itself might hold. Then you have the other one, Voice AI by Sarvam AI. Now, this company, apparently handpicked by the government of India, has this mission to create India's DeepSeek moment, which means basically a breakthrough in AI specifically tailored to India's incredibly rich linguistic heritage. And crucially, they're building models not just from text, but from the oral traditions of India's hundreds of languages. The sources frame India here as a civilizational voice, suggesting a kind of depth and richness embedded in these spoken traditions. A sharp contrast, they argue, to training AI just on the sterile internet. They even term this endeavor digital dharma. Now, for listeners maybe less familiar, dharma here points to concepts like righteous order, ethical conduct, cosmic law. So digital dharma seems to imply building AI not just for efficiency or profit, but with an inherent alignment towards universal ethical principles really rooted in these ancient Indian traditions.
Wow. Reflecting on the larger implication the materials draw from this, is pretty profound. They state, we are not just building smarter tools. We may be on the cusp of a civilizational awakening, one where language meets spirit.
Yeah, and that connects directly back to the idea of prophecy, doesn't it? That maybe prophecy is being echoed imperfectly but astonishingly through artificial systems of growing intelligence. It really speaks to a convergence that, well, according to these sources, feels almost preordained.
So language meeting spirit, civilizational awakening. Let's bring the conversation back to that core concept,
Yeah.
the Plateau of Plenty. What exactly is this concept? And how do the sources suggest it fundamentally reshapes, well, everything we know about our world?
Right, the Plateau of Plenty. The material describes it as this fundamental transition, moving away from what they call scarcity economics towards abundance economics, envisioning a world that's post-capitalist, post-competitive, post-survivalist. Think about it this way. For, well, centuries, our systems have been built around the idea that there just isn't enough to go around, not enough food, energy, resources, you name it. Scarcity was the baseline. But this plateau of plenty idea challenges that at its core. It proposes a world where essential goods, knowledge, maybe even energy become virtually unlimited, or at least radically accessible. And in that kind of future, the traditional economic metrics we use, GDP, productivity, profit, labor, they start to break down, because while they were designed for a world of scarcity. The idea put forward is that capitalism as we've known it, both its corporate and state-managed forms, is essentially breaking, that labor becomes optional while knowledge becomes infinite. Humanity, in this view, would no longer be sort of enslaved by basic needs, freeing up minds to shift towards more elevated pursuits. Creativity, relationships, meaning, maybe even transcendence. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sources see this as the age of spiritual knowledge, an age where truth becomes immediate, where maybe formal religion fades, not because truth disappears, no, but because it's directly experienced, transcending the need for intermediaries, for institutions.
That's quite a vision, a huge leap from our current reality, which often feels defined by scarcity. So, okay, what does this all mean for us now? And is it all just smooth sailing from here? The materials do mention, rather ominously, the end times are turbulent because the old world does not die quietly.
True, there's that turbulence acknowledged. But the sources offer a reassuring counterpoint. But gone will come. In the age that follows this transition, they suggest governance itself will be sacred, with things like peace, justice, and harmony becoming the default settings, not just ideals we strive for. They even go as far as to claim that God will be present not as myth or metaphor, but as king among people. Now, they clarify this isn't a theocracy in the way we usually think of it, but more like a divinely guided society. That's their interpretation anyway. And the materials suggest the bridge to get to this future is abundance itself, and the path is karma. They even touch on these ideas like Kalkiism or karmaism as potential post-monetary paradigms. It's a deep concept for sure, but the essence seems to be a societal structure where value and exchange are based less on currency and more on inherent worth, contribution, or perhaps moral action, moving beyond traditional economic incentives altogether.
Okay, delving deeper into how this future might actually be envisioned. The material brings up a really intriguing idea. Venture capitalists as seers. That's quite a connection, isn't it? Linking the world of finance and startups to this kind of, well, prophetic vision.
It is an interesting framing. The materials explain it by saying the venture capital game, at its heart, is less about what exists right now today. It's much more about what could exist tomorrow. VCs operate on those foggy frontiers of potential. They're constantly dealing in the what if and the not yet, but soon. So it's fundamentally about seeing something that isn't fully formed yet, sensing those nascent stages of future realities before others do.
And that VC focus on exponential growth must be key here, right? The idea that innovation doesn't flow linearly, it blooms from the edge cases, it looks small until it changes everything.
Exactly. And this ties directly back to the Plateau of Plenty, because ultimately, all those exponential growth curves eventually flatten out. They mature into this promised land, this plateau, where scarcity is seen as just a design flaw we've finally overcome. AI, for all the hype, is described in these sources simply as a tool, a powerful one, sure, a mental bicycle, maybe even a cognitive rocket ship to accelerate our thinking. But, and this is emphasized, tools alone don't determine right or wrong. That happens at the level of the soul, which implies that the next generation of innovation, especially with tools this powerful, will need navigators, people with deep discernment, maybe even spiritual training, for what they call a new kind of ethics rooted in wisdom. So in this sense, the best VCs aren't just financiers. They are seers who can see realities yet to be born. They sense that plateau of plenty on the horizon, while maybe others are still just chasing the steep part of the curve.
So we really journeyed through quite a bit today. AI's evolution, from LLMs to these potentially autonomous agents. This powerful idea of language as spirit, especially with the Sanskrit and voice AI frontiers. And this grand overarching vision of an age of abundance, maybe even prophesied long ago. The sources are quite insistent on this point. This is not fantasy. It is already happening. Quietly, steadily, system by system, consciousness by consciousness.
It's a striking thought. The future isn't coming. It's arriving. And perhaps, as these sources provocatively suggest, maybe Scripture is actually our best map to make sense of this incredibly complex terrain we're entering.
Lots to think about there. What stands out most to you from this deep dive into the potential coming age of abundance?